Hi, Tim Unkert here, and in this video I'm going to make a web app that tells you the roots of a cubic. So just to tell you what I'm thinking of, let's bring up a draw island. And I'm just going to start out with a cubic function. Let's say we have x minus 2 times 2x plus 1 times x plus 3. And we set that equal to 0. Well, the roots of this, if you understand zero product property, would be -3, -1/2, and +2. The reason being, we'd set each of these factors equal to 0 and solve for x. Because if one of these is 0, then when we multiply it by the others, everything will be 0. Okay, but we typically wouldn't start in factored form like this. We would start with it multiplied out. So we'd have x times 2x. That would give us 2x squared. Then x times 1, which is just x. And then -2 times 2x, which is -4x. And -2 times 1, which is -2. And then we multiply that by x plus 3. That equals 0. Okay, so now we take all of these terms, and we could combine them, do like terms, but we could take all these terms, multiply by x, and multiply by 3. So we get, let's see, 2x cubed plus x squared minus 4x squared minus 2x. And then we do 2x squared times 3, which is 6x squared. X times 3, which is 3x. -4x times 3, which is -12x. And -2 times 3, which is -6. That equals 0. Okay. So let's see here. So we're going to have 2x cubed. And what I like to do is I cross off as I go. So change color, just cross that off. And then we'd have minus 3x squared. Plus 6x squared. So actually, let me take out my eraser. So it'd be actually plus, no, keep this, be minus 3x squared plus 6x squared is pencil, plus 3x squared. And we cross that out. So boom, boom, boom. Then we have minus 2x plus 3x, that's plus x minus 12x, that's minus 11x. Hold on one sec, my alarm's going off. All right, so we'd have minus 11x, so we're going to cross off those. And then we have a minus 6 at the end. And that equals 0. So what we're going to do is we're going to have started with something like this and come up with the solutions 2, -1/2, and -3. And we're going to have variables a, b, c, and d. Okay, that we're going to put into an online form that you can enter in, and it will tell you the solutions. Okay, that's the goal behind the program tonight. All right, so I'm going to pull up Emacs. I'm in a directory called math, and I'm going to create another directory. I'm going to call that rational root web app. Okay, and I'm going to go into that directory, and I'm going to create a file. Let's start with an index.php file. Okay. And I'm going to turn on web mode, and I'm going to turn on emit mode for doing this. Okay, so I'm going to start by expanding out just a little framework there, and then expanding out a tag, viewport tag. Okay, and let's call this rational root, because we are using the rational root there. I'm going to use Bootstrap with this, so I'm going to go over here and just get the Bootstrap 5 CDN for the CSS and the JavaScript, although we won't really be using the JavaScript. I just put that in there anyways. So I'm going to copy and then paste that in. Okay. And we'll go down here in the body, and we'll make a comment that this is the Bootstrap JS Bundle that we're going to put in. And let's go and copy the bundle, and let's paste that in. Okay. All right. Okay. So I'm going to start with a div with a class equal to container, and it has a margin top of 5 and a padding top of 5. And whoops, padding top of 5. And close that tag. And within there, we're actually going to have, let's have a row. Let's use Emmet here. We'll have a row. Within that, we'll have a column that's 4 columns across at the median breakpoint and above, and that is offset at the median breakpoint and above by 4 columns. And within that, let's have a form. And within the form, I'm going to have a label plus an input with the class form control, and we're actually going to have 4 of those. Okay, so I'm going to expand those out. And so I'll have a label for A, and we'll say something like enter the value of A. Okay, and name's going to be A. Type is actually going to be number, and the value or the ID is going to be A. Whoops, A. All right, and I'm actually going to do a macro for this. So I'm going to do Control-0 or Control-W as my W as the starting the macro, and I have 1, 2, 3 T's. So I'm going to go 3FT. Nope, 0 actually, 4FT, and then delete the word and insert number. Escape, go down to end my macro, and I'm going to go 2 at W, change those to numbers. That'll make it a little bit easier. Okay. I'm going to go here, insert a B, insert a C, and insert a D. Okay, and I'm going to just copy this, yank it, paste it, paste it, paste it, and then go back, replace this with D, replace this with C, and replace this with B. Okay, the name for this is going to be B, and it's going to be an ID. It's going to be B also, and it's going to be an ID. This is going to be C, and this is going to be C, and it's going to be D, and this is going to be D. Okay, all right, so I've saved that part. Let's go up. The form is going to have an action, which is going to be form.php, and the method is going to equal post. Okay, and I want to wrap these all in divs. So, all right, what I'm going to do is another macro. So QW, then I'm going to go up 1 to the end of the line, go down, create a div with a class of margin bottom 3, and then escape, go down to the end of the line, and then create a div, escape, go down, end my macro, and I'm going to do 3 at W. Okay, so that's going to close in those, and let's just take care of the formatting quickly. Nope. Okay. Oops. Do that last part. Nope. Let me redo that. No, that's replace. Okay. Hold on. Bear with me 1 second. Okay. So we've got it formatted pretty good, and we're going to have one more div with a class of MB3, and inside of that, I want an input, and the input name is going to be submit. The type is going to be submit, and ID is going to be submit, and we're going to give it a class of btn dash primary. Okay. All right. So we've got that running. Let me open a new window here. All right, I'm going to CD into math, and then CD into rational root web app. What did I do? No such file or directory, because I spelled it wrong. There we go. And I'm going to start the server on my local host at 8,000. Okay, so we got my development server going. I'm going to go over here to local host 8,000. And you'll see that my form is nicely styled and ready to go. So we can enter the value and then submit it. So now we've got to go back to Dear Ed here, and let's create a file. So Control X, Control F, and the file is going to be form.php. Okay, and I'm going to do, I'm going to enable web mode and also emit mode here, and I'm going to just, what am I going to do? Just do an exclamation and then Control G to expand it. Okay. We also want the viewport tag. And let's call this form for rational root, something like that. Okay, we also want to have my Bootstrap 5 CSS. Okay, so I'm going to go back here, go back and copy that and paste that in. Okay, and at the end here, we also want our Bootstrap 5 JS Bundle. Okay, and let's go here, copy that and paste that in. Okay. Okay, so up at the top here, I want to have a container with a margin top of 5, a padding top of 5. Under that, I want a div with a class of row. Then within that, I want a div with a class of column MD4. That's the breakpoint, medium 4 columns across. And then also offset MD4. And I think that's it. Okay, so I'm going to expand that out. And then within here, we're going to have a PHP, and we're just going to say include once. It's going to be form handler.php, and that's going to be our form page. Okay, so I'm going to go back to Dear Ed, And I'm going to Control X, Control F, and create a form handler.php. And I probably should be naming these a little bit differently, but whatever. Okay, one thing I want to do before I get going, let's enable web mode. Okay, so I'm going to insert here, and I get my PHP tag. All right, so I'm going to say if is set, and then we're going to use the post method. And if they press the submit button. So, well, then we're going to set some variables. We're going to say A is equal to the post method, taking in A, and I'm also going to do that for B, C, and D. Okay, and I'm not going to close this out just yet. I'm not going to close out my if-else statement just yet. But what I am going to do now is create another PHP tag, and I'm going to say include once, and then we're going to have an includes folder we need to create, and we're going to call the math classes.php file. And so now I'm going to save this, and I'm going to go back to Theorem. And now I am going to Shift plus to create a new directory. I'm going to call this inc for includes. And then we'll go into the inc and Control X, Control F, and we're going to create math classes.php. Okay, so we're going to have enable web mode. I probably should make this just enable on startup. Anyways, so we have our PHP tag, and now I'm going to start with a class and call that cubic roots. And within the class, we're going to say public A, and then we're also going to have B, C, and D. And then we're going to start with our methods. Sorry, just ate corn. All right. So the first method is going to be function, and I'm going to call this method find potential roots. Okay, and we're going to only need to take in the variable A and the variable D into this function. And I'm going to say this A equals A, and this B equals B. Okay, and then we need to create a few, just stubbed my toe. We need to create an empty array for the factors of D. So I'm going to call this factors of D array, or ARR, and that's going to be an array, an empty array. And then we need to create an empty array for the factors of A. And I'm going to call that factors of A array. Okay, and that's going to be an empty array as well. And then we have to create an empty array for the potential solutions. Okay, and I'll just call that potential solutions array, and that's going to equal an empty array as well. Okay, now we're going to use a little bit of a for loop. So I'm going to say for, and I'm going to say x equals 1. X is less than or equal to the absolute value of D, because if D is a negative number, we can't, count up. So we want to have the absolute value, and then we're going to increment x each time. And I'm going to say, now I'm going to have an if statement. If d divided by a is equal to 0, then x divided by x equals 0, then x is a factor. Okay, so I'm going to do that by saying if, and actually, sorry, we should be using the proper. We're taking an A and D, so I messed this up. This should be D here. And what I should have in here is this D. Okay. So I'm going to say if this D modulo x, if that equals 0, then I'm going to array push, underscore push. So I'm going to push the value of x into the factors of D array. So I'm going to push it into that array, the value of x. Okay. And that'll close out that if statement, and that'll close that for loop. And so we also want to find the factors of, let me make a comment here actually too in my notes. So this is, we are pushing the factors of D into the factors of D array. Okay, now we want to push the factors of A into the factors of A array. Okay, so I'm going to say for, let's do y equals 1. Y is less than or equal to the absolute value of this A, and we'll increment y up. Then we're going to have our if statement. If A divided by y equals 0, then y is a factor of A. And I'll just make it clear for our notes of D here. Okay, cool. All right, so I'm going to say if this A modulo modulo y, if that equals 0, well then we're going to push into the array. So we're going to push y into the factors of A array. Okay, and that close out the if statement, close out the for loop. Okay, so we've got those going in. So now we have to just find our potential roots. So find the potential roots and push them into the potential roots array. Okay, so let's go back to our little thing here. And so there's this thing called the rational root theorem. So if I take all the factors of -6, so that'd be plus or minus 1, 2, 3, and 6, and I divide them by all the factors of 2, that gives me all the potential solutions. So plus or minus 1 and 2. So we could have 3, we could have -3, we could have 1.5, we could have 1, we could have -1/2, we could have 2, -2, -3. And so you'll see they're all covered when we do that. But so that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to take the factors of D, which is this -6, and dividing it by the factors of A, which is the 1 and 2. And plus or minus 1 and 2. Okay, so all right, so now we've got our factors of A array and factors of D array. Okay, so what I'm going to do is say for each, let's say factors of D as factors as factor of D. For each of those, we're going to do a for loop, or we're going to loop through those. And I'm also going to say for each, then factors of A as, let's say, factor of A. And we're going to take this potential solutions array. So we're going to array push, and then we'll do the potential solutions array, and we're going to push in the factor of D divided by the factor of A. Okay. All right, so I'm going to close off those two, and then what I'm going to do is copy this. Actually, let me escape out of there. Go to the end of the line, and now I'm going to copy this. Okay, I'm going to yank it and then paste it down here, and let's make a comment. The reason I'm doing this is find the potential negative roots here. Okay, so what we're going to just do to change that is we'll just have a -1 times this. Okay, and now we're kind of at the end of our first method, so we're going to return the potential solutions array. Okay, and we'll close out that method. Okay, and the next method we have, this method will return the potential, or we'll return the actual solutions. Okay, so this is going to be our next method that we're going to write. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a function. Let's call this function roots of cubic. And we're going to take in A, we have to take in B, we have to take in C, we have to take in D, and we have to take in some variable potential solutions that I'm going to set equal to the function when you pass in A and B. Okay? And I'm going to say this A equals A, and do that for B, C, and D. Okay, and then also this, potential solutions equals just the potential solutions. Sorry, actually, don't want the $sign. Potential solutions. Okay, that's going to equal the potential solutions. Okay, we're going to have to get that function in the form handler. Okay, so now the potential solutions is an array. So I'm going to say for each potential solutions as potential just solution for each of those, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a variable that is the cubic value, and that's going to be equal to, let me move this up here. So that's going to be equal to this A times the power of the potential solution cubed plus this B times the power of the potential solution squared plus this C times just the potential solution this time, and then plus this D. Okay, Okay, so now we've got our cubic value. So if, oh wait, we have to create an array first. So let's have an array where we're going to have a solutions array is equal to an empty array, because we're going to need to push something in there. Okay, so we're going to say if cubic value, so if this cubic value equals 0, we know we are onto a solution. So I'm going to take my solutions array, first I'm going to array push into my solutions array. I'm going to push in the potential solution, okay? And we'll end that if statement, and then that should be the end of our for each loop. And then at the end of this function, we want to return our solutions array. And we want to end this function and then end the class. And oops, let's just neaten this up a little bit. And there we go. All right, so that is our class for our find the cubic. So we're gonna have a class called cubic roots. So I'm going to go now to dear ed, and I'm actually going to go up into my form handler, and let's create another PHP tag. And in between this PHP tag here, what we're going to do is now create a object. So let's say that the solutions, or no, let's go the roots equals a new cubic root, okay? And we're going to have the roots, and we want to call the method, the first method. So let me go back. Let me write this and then go back just to see what my methods were. Refresh my memory. So we have find potential roots and then roots of cubic. Okay. All right. So we're going to now call the find potential roots function, and we're going to pass in A and D. And I'm actually going to go to the beginning of this and say that a variable, so let's call this variable the potential solutions. That's going to equal this, okay? And then we're going to have the solutions is going to equal the roots, and we're going to now let me save it again because I want to remember what that function was. So let me go back. And the second function was roots of a cubic. Okay. So we're going to have roots of cubic. I think it was roots of cubic. Ah, shoot. I forgot. Sorry. Jumping all over. Roots of cubic. Okay. Okay, so roots of cubic, and we're going to pass in A, B, C, and D, and this potential solutions. Okay. All right. So now to print out our solutions, we're going to say for each the solutions as, let's say, the solution. What I'm going to do, well, actually, before I'm going to do that, let's echo, and we'll start with a paragraph. and we'll say the solutions to the cubic are, and we'll end that line. Then we'll go back into our for each loop and we'll echo x equals, then concatenate on the solution, and then concatenate on another space, and let's have, let's just do a break and end that line and end the for each loop and save it. Oh, one more thing we have to do is close out the if tag up above. So, because we left the if tag open. Okay, so now we want to, let's test it. And so we've got 2, 3, negative 11, negative 6. So we're going to plug in those values, see if we get anything. 2, 3, negative 11, and negative 6. Let's submit. And we don't have anything showing up. So I'm going to pull up this, and we're seeing what we get an error. So cubic root not found in form handler. Form handler in line 12. Okay. New cubic root. That's the issue. Let me see if I did something silly. And let's go to the top of this file. Cubic roots. Okay. I did do something silly. You got to be careful with that. You know what? I'd rather it be cubic root. So I'm going to delete this letter. Okay. And now that I've refreshed that, let's pull back up our browser and continue. Cubic, the solutions to the cubic are blank. Okay, let's take a look at our, okay, null given. Okay, so that means they're not undefined variable. Math classes line 52. Let's take a look at that. So let's go to line 52. Okay. Return potential solutions array. Potential solutions array is a blank array. I spelled it wrong. Got to be careful. All right. Let's go back here. Let's refresh and see if we can get anything. Okay, so we've got our solutions. Let's check. So there was a little bit of error there, but all right. So we've got 2, 3, negative 11, negative 6, and we've got 2. The solution should be 2, negative a half, and negative 3. Now we have negative 3 twice. That's the way it's looping through. Now, if you want to improve upon this program, if you're watching this and you're a web developer, you want to improve upon it and you want to eliminate dual answers, right back at you. But this is working as a web app. The other thing, though, is if you enter something that maybe doesn't have solutions, then you might have an issue. And I kind of want the formatting to look a little nicer. So let's actually go back to here and we'll go up into the form handler, and where I'm echoing this, I'm just going to have a break here, and I'm actually going to, let's put a colon there, and let's see what that looks like. So we'll refresh All right, so that looks a little nicer. So it comes up with our solutions. So that's kind of cool. All right, let's test it with one more value. Let's do a different one. Just make sure this is working okay. So let's do, I don't know, let's say x minus 1 times 5x plus 2 times x minus, let's do x plus 1. We'll just test it that way. So we should get -1, or we should get +1 here, -1 here, and then -2/2 here, or -0.4. So let's multiply this out. So if I do the first part, I'm going to get, let's see, x, or let me erase this. I should get 5x squared, and then plus 2x minus 5x minus 2 times x plus 1. And then I can just cross this out. I'm just going to write this as -3x because I don't want to make this video too long. So I'm going to get 5x cubed, if I multiply by x, minus 3x squared, minus 2x, plus 5x squared, minus 3x, minus 2. And if I combine that together, I'm going to get 5x cubed plus 2x squared minus 5x minus 2. So I'm going to have 5, 2, minus 5, and -2. Okay, so we'll go back here. Let's just refresh. Let me just refresh this page. Again, we're going to do 5, 2, -5, -2. So 5, 2, -5, -2. Submit, and we get the solutions are 1, -1, and -0.4, just as we suspected. So the program is working. If I was going to really work this out and put this into production, I would have to do a bunch of other checks because there's going to be probably some cases where it throws some bugs. But for a quick little web app, for a fun little video to do, it was really fun. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did enjoy it, please like and subscribe and hit the bell for notifications, as it really helps the channel grow. And if you've already liked and subscribed or hit the bell for notifications, thank you. And I hope you keep watching, and I'll see you in the next one.